Hey everyone, it's MassLive's Melissa Hansen. We're here at Element Brewing. It's our second stop of the day for MassLive Breweries. Sorry about the connection issues with the previous video. Hopefully this one works a little bit better. So let's take a look around. Alright, so we are back live again.
Okay,
so
great.
Let's take a little tour of the brewery.
Sure.
Alright.
Follow me. It's the game room.
Awesome.
And we do rotating artists.
Like local people?
Yep.
Very cool.
Yeah, every 2 months we change it up.
And do you guys just display them, or can
Yeah.
people purchase
No,
the works?
Yeah, they purchase them. We don't take a
Cool.
commission at all. The artist gets 100% of the proceeds.
Awesome.
Yeah. So the dogs are usually kind of excited to see strangers.
Excellent.
So they may bark. Oh, they're starting.
Oh.
You good dog. Come on. Come on.
Some brewery dogs. All right.
Yeah.
So how long have you guys been in business?
We opened in 2009,
Oh.
so 7.5 years. Yeah.
So what do we have going on back here?
This is our brewery.
Did you turn off the music?
Yeah. Yep. So it's a 4-5 barrel brew house, so it's relatively small for a commercial brewery. But we do have some larger tanks, so we triple brew to fill the tanks. That was something that really allowed us to kind of expand and make a lot more beer. Because most of our beers are a little bit on the higher side of alcohol content, and but for the most part, when you taste them, you don't really perceive the alcohol. And that's because we age our beer for a long time. So that
How
takes most of our beers are a minimum of 6 weeks.
Okay.
Where most ale breweries are like 2 weeks, so quite a bit longer. So it just takes more tanks, it takes more time, and it costs more money.
Yeah.
You know, because time is money, tanks are money, everything's, you know.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what do some of these tanks do?
So this is the brew house here. So this tank right here is the mash tun. That's where the brewing process starts. We mix in the hot water with the malted barley, allow it to steep and get all the sugars and flavors and colors of the malt out. Then we take that liquid and transfer it over to the kettle. We'll bring it to a boil. We usually boil for about 90 minutes, and we add hops at that time. We add hops in a variety of stages, depending on the beer we're making and what we're trying to achieve. Because the longer a hop is boiled, the more bitterness you get, the less aroma.
Gotcha.
So we add hops in the beginning for bitterness and towards the end for more aromatic properties. After it's done boiling, we'll put it into this little short tank here. That's a whirlpool. So the word is unfermented beer. We'll spin around in a circle in that tank, and what's going to happen is all the hops and the proteins that were formed during the boil will move to the center, and then we'll slowly drain it off the side, leaving that pile of hops and proteins behind. Run it through a heat exchanger, cool it down, and put it into one of the fermenters and add yeast. And the yeast is going to eat the sugar that was removed from the malt in the mash tun and create alcohol and carbonation. This is a beer that will be out in probably another 5 weeks, sometime in September. It's Citronium. It's a kind of a double. Coming out of it. So then once that, and that's why all the fermenters are cone shaped. So the yeast will settle into the bottom of that cone. We're able to brew. Then we'll take the beer out of the fermenter and put it into an aging tank, and there it'll sit cold for usually about a month in the low 30s. After that, we all of our bottled beers are bottle conditioned. So when it's sitting in that aging tank, one of the things we do differently than most breweries is we let our beer be as flat as possible in the conditioning tank. Most breweries would keep it under a positive pressure. We just keep enough CO2 on it to keep oxygen off of the beer. Sorry, that's the front door. In case we're working back here and somebody comes in. So we just keep enough CO2 on it to keep oxygen off the beer. And then when we actually bottle the beer, what we'll do is just before we put it into the bottle, we'll add a little bit of unfermented beer and some fresh yeast. And then we put it into a bottle, let it warm up, and it's going to undergo another short fermentation in the bottle. And that fermentation is what's going to create the CO2, the carbonation for the beer. So it carbonates itself in the bottle.
Gotcha. So how many tanks in total do you have in here?
We have 8 lagering tanks and 4 fermenters, plus the 3 brewhouse tanks.
Cool. So how much beer can you have going at once?
And theoretically, each one of these tanks could be full, so that's about 140 barrels of beer.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you guys have like a very different approach with like the bottle aging and like the way you go through the beer, and particularly the styles. Like, what's your approach to brewing?
So it kind of comes from when we first started, before we even opened the company. We were talking about what it is, about what kind of beers we wanted to make. You know, it's kind of a fundamental question you have to ask yourself when you're opening a brewery. And we really just couldn't come up with an answer because, you know, let's make an IPA. Everybody likes IPAs. But it was like, there's 100 good IPAs out there. Why do we want to be the 101st on the shelf, you know, kind of thing? It just wasn't appealing. So we tried to find a style that was like underrepresented or, you know, wasn't being done well, that we could kind of, you know, get ahead of kind of, and we just couldn't find what we wanted to brew. So finally we just decided, what if we like stop thinking about styles and think more about the flavors we wanted to create. So that's kind of how we kind of formed the beers that we make. So we generally don't brew beer to style. Most of our beers are like fusions. We'll take, like our summer beer is an oatmeal pilsner, because we had a conversation about like, how would you combine a pilsner and a stout? You know, and so we came up with the idea of like taking an oatmeal stout and a pilsner and putting it together. So the oats give it a lot more body and richness to it than you'd get out of a typical pilsner. So we like to kind of play and experiment in that way.
Cool. Now, does the sort of science motif you guys have play into that?
It does, yeah. You know, again, part of the experimentation, and where this real science idea kind of came out of is when both Ben and I have been brewers for a long time. I've been brewing commercially for 30 years, and both of us have been formally trained. We've both been to brewing school. So when we were talking about what it is about brewing beer, why are we brewers? We kind of boiled it down to it's the fusion of art and science. That there's a lot of creativity, especially with what we're doing. You know, with making up new things and not really brewing beer to style. And then there's a lot of science involved as well. There's a lot of chemistry, a lot of biology, you know, even lots of physics too. You know, so it's because it's kind of both creative and scientific. It's endlessly interesting.
How many different varieties have you guys made?
I don't know. A lot.
Yeah.
And still counting.
Cool.
Yeah, so we have this beer is part of it actually, the Citronium is, we have a series called Absolute Zero. And that's, the idea behind it is Absolute Zero is 0 Kelvin or negative 460 degrees Fahrenheit. So we make 460 bottles of it. So we just come up with an idea and brew it and make 460 bottles. We make a couple of, you know, we keg off the rest and then it's gone. You know, so it just allows us to be creative and come up with, you know, try new things. And, you know, some of them we brew again, some of them we don't, you know. So this is one of the more popular ones, Citron.
Cool.
Yeah, so do you guys think you experiment a lot more than other breweries, which kind of tend to sit more on a flagship?
Yeah, I would say so. And I don't really like to draw comparisons between ourselves and other breweries. Just I try to focus more on what we do than what other people are doing, which I think is also kind of different. Like, you know, that we purposely don't make well, you know, beers to style. We're not real trend followers. You know, we're not jumping on different wagons that go by. You know, we just kind of stick to our guns and do what we want to do. And you know, the brewery's owned by 2 brewers. You know, we're very passionate about what we do. So.
Cool. How many square feet is your facility?
This one's about just over 9,000.
Okay.
We used to have just under 3,000. So yeah, we tripled our size when we moved.
Yeah.
A lot more room.
Yeah. So now you have the small bar and then the game room and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. And this place has like a loading dock. So it used to be when we were up on the corner, like we'd get a delivery and the truck would like double park and we'd have to unload it, everything by hand, throw the malt bags on our shoulders and carry it in the building. The malt wasn't too bad, but the bottles were very difficult because it's just a lot of cases. And the best thing we could do is put 4 cases on a truck, on a hand truck, and wheel it around. This building, when we're bottling, we just take a pallet and move it right in, and we fill those bottles, and we put them on a pallet, and we move them right out. So it's kind of a life changer being in here, and it's really allowed us a lot more freedom to do a lot more things. And the distilling as well. Once we got in here and got set up, it was like, wow, we have more time and more, more ability to be creative and focus on new things and branch out.
Cool.
You mentioned the distillery. What kind of stuff are you working on that front?
We can go see the still if you want to see it. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's very small. But we are currently running it with some cider that a friend of ours from Headwater Cider gave us.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I got distracted with the noise.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, so this is kind of an experimental batch. Blends of apples. So we're this is 100% Macintosh wild on the bar for sale now. It's called Newton. And it's really nice. It has this amazing apple aroma. But we've also been doing. We just did. We have vodka, local potatoes from the vodka, tequila. Yeah, so we're kind of branching out and expanding into that too.
So where are your points on that? You're just kind of playing around with it to see what happens?
Yeah, I mean, we want to get bigger and do more of it. Right now, but I've never worked in a commercial distillery. So we're kind of low on the learning curve. So by doing a lot of small batches, and I think there's a lot, we learn a lot faster. Mistakes aren't that big. Kind of move a lot.
Let's move back in the tap room?
Yeah.
I'm Melissa Hansen, and this is day 1 of Best of Mass Breweries judging.